Cole had always been the quiet one. Even as a child growing up in the small town of Cedar Falls, he preferred books over people. He would spend hours in his room reading old stories about distant worlds and ancient heroes. His mother used to say he had a gentle soul, too gentle for a universe that seemed to value only strength and noise. Now, at 28 years old, worked as a security guard for the United Earth Diplomatic Corps. It was not a glamorous job. He stood in hallways. He watched doors. He made sure important people stayed safe while they talked about things he did not fully understand, but did not mind. The job was quiet, and quiet suited him just fine. When Commander Lisa Grant called him into her office one Tuesday morning, assumed he was in trouble. He searched his memory for anything he might have done wrong. He could not think of anything, but that did not stop his heart from beating faster as he walked through her door. Lisa Grant was a tall woman with short gray hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. She had been in the military for 30 years, and she carried herself like someone who had seen both the best and worst of what the galaxy had to offer. "Cole," she said, not looking up from her desk, "you're being reassigned." Felt his stomach drop. "Did I do something wrong, Commander?" Lisa finally looked at him. Her expression softened just a little. "No, Cole, you did nothing wrong. In fact, you did everything right. That's why I'm putting you on the detail." Blinked. They were one of the most powerful alien species in the known galaxy. They controlled 12 star systems and commanded a fleet that could destroy Earth in a matter of hours if they wanted to. For the past 100 years, humans had been locked in a cold war, neither side willing to make the first move toward peace or conflict. But that was about to change. Queen Han herself was coming to Station Artemis for peace talks. It was the first time a monarch had ever visited human territory. The whole galaxy was watching. Me asked, "Why me?" Lisa leaned back in her chair. "Because I need someone who won't cause problems. They are proud. They see aggression as a challenge. Most of my guards are good soldiers, but they're also hotheads who might say or do something stupid. You, Cole, are the least threatening person I know, and I mean that as a compliment." Was not sure it felt like a compliment, but he nodded anyway. "When do I start?" "Tomorrow. The Queen arrives at 1800 hours. You'll be stationed outside her private quarters during the night cycle. Just stand there, stay quiet, and try not to make eye contact. Consider direct eye contact from a lower-ranking individual to be an insult." Nodded again. He could do that. Staying quiet and avoiding attention was what he did best. The next day, Station Artemis transformed into something barely recognized. Flags and banners hung from every corridor. Diplomats and officials rushed back and forth, speaking in hushed, urgent voices. Security checkpoints doubled, then tripled. The air itself seemed to hum with tension and importance. Put on his best uniform and reported to his post 2 hours early. He stood in the corridor outside the royal quarters and waited. He had brought a small book of poetry with him, tucked into his jacket pocket. It was an old habit. Whenever he felt nervous, the weight of the book against his chest made him feel a little calmer. At exactly 1800 hours, the Queen arrived. Had seen pictures of the before, but nothing had prepared him for the real thing. Queen Han was nearly 7 feet tall. Her skin was a shimmering silver that seemed to glow faintly in the station's artificial light. Her eyes were deep violet, like the color of a dying star. She wore flowing robes of black and gold, and a crown of twisted metal sat upon her head like frozen lightning. She walked with the kind of grace that made everyone around her seem clumsy by comparison. Her entourage followed behind her, warriors and advisors in matching silver armor. They moved in perfect silence, their footsteps making no sound on the metal floor. As she passed, the Queen glanced in his direction. It lasted only a moment, but in that moment felt as if she could see straight through him. He quickly looked down at his feet, remembering what Commander Grant had said about eye contact. The royal procession disappeared into the quarters, and the doors slid shut. let out a breath he did not realize he had been holding. The first night passed without incident. Stood at his post, read a few poems when no one was looking, and tried not to think too much about the powerful alien sleeping just a few meters away. But on the second night, something happened. It was around 3 in the morning, station time. The corridors were empty and silent. Was reading a poem about the sea when he noticed movement at the edge of his vision. He looked up and saw a figure standing on the observation deck at the end of the hall. His training kicked in. He moved toward the figure, one hand on his weapon, ready for anything. But as he got closer, he realized who it was. Queen Hen stood alone, staring out at the stars. She was not wearing her crown or her royal robes. Instead, she wore a simple gray dress that made her look almost ordinary, almost human. She turned when she heard him approach. Her violet eyes narrowed. "You dare approach me without permission?" she asked. Her voice was cold, but there was something else in it too, something that sounded almost like curiosity. Stopped, he knew he should apologize. He knew he should bow and back away and pretend this never happened. But something made him stay. "I'm sorry, Your Majesty," he said. "I saw movement and thought there might be danger. I was just doing my job." The Queen studied him for a long moment. "You are not afraid of me?" It was not a question, thought about it anyway. "I suppose I'm too tired to be afraid," he said honestly. "And besides, the stars look particularly beautiful tonight. It's hard to be scared when you're looking at something so beautiful." The Queen's eyes widened slightly. For a moment she said nothing. Then, slowly, the corner of her mouth curved upward. She laughed. It was a soft sound, almost musical. Had read that they did not show emotion, that they considered it a weakness. But here was their queen, laughing at something a simple human guard had said. "You are strange," she said. "What is your name?" "Cole, Your Majesty." "Cole," she repeated, as if tasting the words. "I think I will remember that name." She turned back to the stars and stood beside her in comfortable silence. Neither of them spoke for a long time. They did not need to. Sometimes the best conversations are the ones that happen without words. When the Queen finally returned to her quarters, she paused at the door and looked back at him. "Tomorrow night," she said, "I may return to this spot." It was not an invitation. It was not a command. It was something in between. Nodded, "I'll be here, Your Majesty." And for the first time in his life, Cole found himself looking forward to tomorrow. The peace negotiations were not going well. Every day, diplomats from Earth and the Empire met in the great conference hall and argued about borders, trade routes, and old wounds that had never healed. Voices were raised. Fists were slammed on tables. More than once, the talks came close to falling apart completely. Watched it all from his post outside the doors. He did not understand most of what was being discussed, but he could feel the tension in the air. It was thick and heavy, like the moment before a storm. But every night, when the diplomats went to bed and the station grew quiet, something magical happened. Queen Han would appear on the observation deck and would join her. At first, they did not talk much. They simply stood together and watched the stars spin slowly past the window. But as the days turned into weeks, the silences between them began to fill with words. She asked him about Earth. She wanted to know about the oceans, the forests, the mountains that touched the sky. Told her about Cedar Falls, about the small river that ran behind his childhood home, about the way the leaves changed color in autumn. "We have nothing like that on my world," the Queen said one night. "Our planet is covered in crystal plains, beautiful but unchanging, the same view for 1,000 years." "That sounds lonely," said without thinking. The Queen turned to look at him. Her violet eyes seemed to glow in the dim light. "It is," she admitted. "I have never said that out loud before." Felt his heart beat faster. He was talking to one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, and she was sharing secrets with him. It felt unreal, like something out of one of his old storybooks. "What is that?" she asked suddenly, pointing at the small shape in his jacket pocket. Pulled out his book of poetry. The cover was worn and faded from years of use. Just something I like to read, he said. It helps pass the time. What kind of book? Poetry, old earth poetry. The Queen's head tilted to one side, a gesture that had learned meant curiosity. I have heard of human poetry, but I have never experienced it. My people do not create such things. We consider art to be inefficient. Smiled, that's a shame. I think art is what makes life worth living. Show me, the Queen said. It was not a request, but it was not a command either. It was something softer, something almost like a plea. Opened the book and searched for the right poem. He chose one he had loved since childhood, a poem about a traveler who wandered the world looking for home, only to realize that home was not a place but a feeling. He read the words slowly, carefully, letting each line breathe. His voice was quiet, but in the silence of the observation deck, it seemed to fill the entire room. When he finished, he looked up. The Queen had not moved. Her eyes were fixed on him with an intensity that made him want to look away, but he did not. That was beautiful, she whispered. Her voice was different now, stripped of its royal coldness. She sounded almost human. Your people carry such sadness and such hope in the same breath. How do you bear it? We don't always bear it well, admitted. But we try. That's all anyone can do. The Queen was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was barely audible. I think I have forgotten how to try. Did not know what to say to that, so he simply stood with her, offering his presence as comfort. Sometimes that was enough. High Advisor and had been watching the Queen closely. He had served the royal family for over 200 years, and he knew Han better than anyone. He knew her moods, her habits, her subtle expressions that others could not read. And he knew that something was changing. The Queen had always been cold, distant, calculating. It was what made her a great ruler. Emotion was weakness, and weakness led to defeat. This had been the way for thousands of years. But lately, the Queen seemed distracted. She smiled at odd moments. She stared out windows when she should have been reviewing reports, and every night she disappeared for hours without explanation. And sent spies to follow her. They reported back with troubling news. The Queen was spending her nights with a human guard, a nobody named Cole. They talked. They looked at stars. The human read her poetry. Poetry, the very thought made his stomach turn. He brought his concerns to the War Council. The commanders listened with growing alarm. Humans were known throughout the galaxy for their strange emotional power. They formed attachments easily and spread those attachments like a disease. Some species had fallen to human influence without a single shot being fired. The Queen is being corrupted, and declared. This human is manipulating her, weakening her resolve. If we allow this to continue, our empire will crumble from within. The commanders nodded in agreement. Something had to be done. But not everyone agreed. A young commander named a spoke up. Perhaps we are being hasty, she said. I have studied humans. I fought against them in the border conflicts. They are not all manipulators. Some of them are genuinely kind. And turned on her with fury in his eyes. Kindness is a weapon, you fool, the most dangerous weapon of all. It makes you lower your guard. It makes you trust. And then when you are weak, they strike. A fell silent, but doubt remained in her eyes. Meanwhile, knew nothing of the danger gathering around him. His world had narrowed to the hours he spent with the Queen. He found himself thinking about her during the day, counting the minutes until night fell. It was foolish. She was a queen, and he was nobody, but his heart did not seem to care about such practical matters. One night, the Queen asked him a question that caught him off guard. Do you have someone waiting for you on Earth, a family, a lover? Shook his head. No, my parents died when I was young. I never really learned how to get close to people after that. The Queen looked at him with something that might have been sadness. We are alike then. I have ruled for 300 years. I have had advisors, servants, subjects, but I have never had a friend. Felt a lump form in his throat. Maybe that can change. The queen reached out and touched his hand. Her skin was cool and smooth like polished stone, but there was warmth beneath it, hidden and fragile. Maybe it already has, she said. They stood together under the stars, two lonely souls who had somehow found each other across the vast emptiness of space. Neither of them knew what the future would bring. Neither of them knew about the plot forming in the shadows. But in that moment, none of it mattered. In that moment, they were not a queen and a guard. They were simply two people who had discovered that they did not have to be alone. And for who had spent his whole life feeling invisible, that was worth more than all the stars in the sky. The War Council met in secret, deep in the lower levels of Station Artemis where no human security could reach. The room was dark, lit only by the soft glow of holographic displays. 12 commanders sat around a circular table, their silver faces hard and unreadable. High Advisor stood at the center, his voice low but filled with passion. He had spent weeks gathering evidence, watching, waiting. Now it was time to act. The queen has been compromised, he said. Every night she meets with this human, she talks to him, she listens to his poetry, she touches his hand. I have seen it with my own eyes. A murmur of disgust rippled through the council. This is not mere friendship, and continued. This is infection. Humans are emotional parasites. They attach themselves to stronger species and drain them of their power. Our queen is falling victim to their influence, and if we do not act, she will drag our entire empire down with her. Commander, the oldest member of the council, spoke up. What do you propose? And smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We eliminate the source of the infection. The human guard must die. And what of the peace treaty? Another commander asked. If a human dies on our watch, it could start a war. That is where the plan becomes elegant, and replied. We frame the death on a rival faction. The outer colonies have been making noise lately. We make it look like their work. The humans blame them. War breaks out between humans and the colonies. Meanwhile, we step back, let our enemies destroy each other, and return to our policy of isolation. The empire remains strong, and the queen is freed from her corruption. The commanders exchanged glances. It was risky, but the logic was sound. They had built their empire on cold calculation, not sentiment. If the queen had forgotten that lesson, it was their duty to remind her. One by one, the commanders nodded their agreement. Only a hesitated. She had fought humans. She had killed them. But she had also seen them show mercy when they did not have to. She had seen them carry wounded enemies to safety. She had seen them weep for fallen comrades and enemies alike. These were not the actions of manipulators. These were the actions of people who felt deeply and cared genuinely. But she was young, and her voice meant little in a room full of old warriors. She nodded with the others, even as doubt gnawed at her heart. The council set the date for 3 days hence. They would lure the human guard to an isolated section of the station with a false emergency call. Once he was alone, they would strike. Quick, clean, untraceable. 3 days. Cole had 3 days left to live. I could not sleep that night. She lay in her quarters, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what she had agreed to. Murder, conspiracy, the betrayal of her own queen. She had joined the military to protect the empire, not to plot in shadows. She had sworn an oath of loyalty to the crown, and now she was helping to undermine the very person she had sworn to serve. But what could she do? If she went to the queen directly and would have her killed, the High Advisor had eyes everywhere. He would know the moment she stepped out of line. There was another option, a dangerous one but perhaps the only one. The next morning, a requested permission to inspect the human security arrangements. It was a routine task, nothing that would raise suspicion. She walked through the human sections of the station, noting the guards, the cameras, the patrol routes. and then she found Commander Lisa Grant. Lisa was reviewing reports in her office when her door chimed. She looked up, expecting one of her own people. Instead, she found a commander standing in her doorway. "Commander Grant," said, "I need to speak with you, alone. It is a matter of life and death." Lisa's hand moved toward her weapon, but something in the alien's eyes made her stop. There was fear there, genuine fear, and something else that looked almost like hope. "Come in," Lisa said. "Close the door." I told her everything: the secret council, the assassination plot, the plan to frame the outer colonies and destroy the peace treaty. Lisa listened without interrupting. When I finished, she sat in silence for a long moment. "Why are you telling me this?" Lisa asked finally. "You're betraying your own people." I shook her head. "I am trying to save my people," and thinks he is protecting the Empire, but he is wrong. War with humanity would destroy us. Your species is small and young, but you fight with a passion we cannot match. I have seen it. You would burn your own worlds before you would surrender." Lisa nodded slowly. She had heard similar assessments from Earth's military analysts. Humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy, but they were the most stubborn. They did not know when to quit. "What do you suggest?" Lisa asked. "Warn the guard. Cole, tell him not to answer any emergency calls that come from channels, and then find a way to expose and plot before it is too late." Lisa stood and extended her hand. I looked at it in confusion. "It's a human custom," Lisa explained. "When two people agree to work together, they shake hands. It means trust." Slowly, I reached out and clasped Lisa's hand. Her grip was cool and firm. "Trust," I repeated. "I hope I am not making a mistake." "You're not," Lisa said. "Now go, before anyone notices you're missing." I left as quietly as she had come. Lisa waited until she was gone, then called to her office. Arrived within minutes, confusion written on his face. "You wanted to see me, Commander." Lisa looked at the young man standing before her. He was ordinary in every way. Average height, average build, average face. There was nothing special about him, nothing that should have caught the attention of an alien queen. And yet it had. "Cole," Lisa said carefully, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. What exactly is going on between you and Queen Han?" His face went pale. "Commander, I can explain." "I'm not accusing you of anything," Lisa interrupted. "But I need to know, because right now there are people who want you dead because of it." Sat down heavily. His hands were shaking. "We just talk," he said. "Every night we meet on the observation deck and we talk about Earth, about her world, about poetry and stars and loneliness. That's all, I swear." Lisa studied him. She had been in the military long enough to know when someone was lying. Cole was not lying. "You really care about her, don't you?" she asked softly. Looked up. There were tears in his eyes, but also something else, something that looked like determination. "Yes," he said. "I know it's crazy. I know it's impossible. But yes, I care about her more than I've ever cared about anything." Lisa nodded. "Then listen carefully. In 3 days, someone is going to try to kill you, and we're going to make sure they fail." The night of the assassination arrived faster than anyone expected. Had spent the past 3 days in a state of constant fear. Commander Grant had warned him about the plot, but they had decided together that he should act normal. Any change in his behavior might alert the conspirators. So went about his duties as usual. He stood at his post. He read his poetry. He met the Queen on the observation deck and talked about stars and dreams. He did not tell her about the danger. He did not want to worry her. He did not want their last conversations to be filled with fear. On the 3rd night the call came. His communication device buzzed with an emergency alert. A security breach had been detected in the lower cargo bay. Channel, requesting immediate assistance. His heart hammered in his chest. This was it, the trap. Commander Grant had told him not to answer any calls from channels, But she had also told him something else. If he did not go, they would simply try again. The only way to end this was to spring the trap and catch the conspirators in the act. Took a deep breath. He thought about his mother who had died when he was young. He thought about the quiet life he had lived, always invisible, always alone. He thought about the queen and the way her eyes sparkled when she laughed. If he was going to die, at least it would be for something that mattered. He walked toward the cargo bay. The lower levels of Station Artemis were dark and cold. Emergency lights cast long shadows across the metal walls. Footsteps echoed in the empty corridors. He did not draw his weapon. He knew it would be useless against trained warriors. He turned a corner and found them waiting for him. There were 12 of them, standing in a half-circle around the entrance to the cargo bay. Their silver armor gleamed in the dim light. Their weapons were drawn, pointing directly at his chest. At the center of the group stood High Advisor N. His ancient face was twisted into a smile of satisfaction. Cole and said, "The human who bewitched our queen, you are smaller than I expected." Forced himself to stay calm. "I didn't bewitch anyone, we just talked." Lies and spat. "Your kind spreads corruption wherever you go. You make others weak. You make them feel, but tonight it ends. Tonight we cut out the infection." He raised his hand, preparing to give the order to fire. And then a voice rang out across the cargo bay, cold and commanding and filled with fury. "Stand down." Everyone turned. Queen Han stood at the far entrance, flanked by her personal guards. Her violet eyes blazed with an anger that had never seen before. She was wearing her royal robes again, her crown upon her head. She looked every inch the ruler of 12 star systems. A stood behind her, head bowed but eyes alert. And smile faltered, "My queen, this is not." "Not what?" Han cut him off. "Not a conspiracy against my throne, not an assassination attempt on an innocent man, not treason of the highest order." She walked forward, each step deliberate and precise. The guards parted before her like water. "I know everything, N. I know about your secret council. I know about your plan to kill this human and frame the outer colonies. I know about your scheme to destroy the peace treaty and return our empire to isolation." N's face hardened. He had served the empire for 2 centuries. He was not going to back down now. "Everything I have done for the good of the," he said. "You have been corrupted, my queen. This human has infected your mind with weakness. You smile, you laugh, you feel. These are not the qualities of a ruler. These are the qualities of prey." "You are wrong," the queen said quietly. "For 300 years I have ruled without feeling. I have been cold and distant and alone. I thought it made me strong, but it did not. It made me empty." She looked at, and her expression softened. "This human showed me something I had forgotten. He showed me that connection is not weakness. Compassion is not corruption. The ability to feel is what separates the living from the dead." And shook his head in disgust. "Pretty words, but words do not win wars." "No," the queen agreed, "but they build civilizations. They create bonds that last across generations. They give us something worth fighting for." She turned to face the assembled warriors. "My soldiers, I ask you to make a choice. Stand with N and his vision of a cold, isolated empire, or stand with me and build something new, something that includes not just strength but also hope." For a moment, no one moved. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Then N laughed. It was an ugly sound filled with contempt. "You see, they hesitate. They know I am right. Soldiers, kill the human, kill him now." The warriors raised their weapons, closed his eyes. And then he stepped forward. He did not know where the courage came from. Perhaps it had always been inside him, waiting for the right moment to emerge. Perhaps it was something the queen had awakened in him during their nights together. He stepped forward, unarmed, and placed himself between the weapons and the queen. "If you want to kill hope," said, his voice shaking but clear, "you'll have to go through me first." and stared at him in disbelief. "You are one human, you cannot stop us." "Maybe not," admitted, "but I can try, that's all anyone can do." He thought of the poem he had read to the Queen. He thought of the traveler searching for home. He thought of hope and loss, and the stubborn human refusal to give up. He stood his ground. The warriors hesitated. They had been taught that humans were soft, cowardly, weak. But here was one man, trembling with fear but refusing to move, willing to die for something he believed in. One of the warriors lowered his weapon, then another, and watched in horror as his conspiracy crumbled around him. "What are you doing? I command you to fire." But no one moved. Commander, the oldest member of the War Council, stepped forward. His ancient face was thoughtful. "I have fought many battles," he said slowly. "I have killed many enemies, but I have never seen anything like this. A man facing death with nothing but words and courage." He looked at the Queen. "Perhaps we have been wrong about humans. Perhaps we have been wrong about many things." He knelt before Han, a gesture of absolute loyalty. One by one, the other warriors followed, and stood alone, surrounded by enemies, his plans destroyed, his face twisted with rage and despair. "This is not over," he hissed. "Yes," the Queen said calmly, "it is." She nodded to her guards. They moved forward and took him into custody. As they led him away, the High Advisor looked back at one final time. There was hatred in his eyes, but also something else. Something that might have been respect. The days following the failed assassination were chaos and celebration in equal measure. News of the conspiracy spread across Station Artemis like wildfire. Diplomats who had been ready to abandon the peace talks suddenly found new enthusiasm for their work. Warriors who had viewed humans with suspicion began to look at them with curiosity instead. High Advisor and was taken back to stand trial for treason. He would spend the rest of his long life in prison, stripped of his rank and his honor. The War Council was dissolved and rebuilt with new members, including Commander who was promoted for her bravery in exposing the plot. But the biggest change was in the Queen herself. Han addressed the Galactic Council 3 days after the incident. Representatives from 100 different species watched as she stood before them, her silver skin gleaming under the bright lights, her violet eyes filled with a warmth that no one had ever seen before. "I have ruled the Empire for 300 years, she began. "In that time I have conquered worlds. I have commanded fleets. I have made decisions that affected billions of lives. I did all of this without feeling, without compassion, without connection. I believed that this was strength." She paused, letting her words sink in. "I was wrong." A murmur rippled through the council chamber. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "Humans have a saying," the Queen continued. "They say that no one is an island. For a long time I did not understand what this meant. My people have always stood alone. We considered it a virtue, but isolation is not strength. It is fear, fear of being hurt, fear of being vulnerable, fear of caring about something so much that losing it would break you." She looked toward the human delegation, where Commander Lisa Grant sat watching with careful attention. "One human taught me this lesson. A simple guard named Cole. He was not a diplomat or a warrior or a scholar. He was just a man who loved poetry and looked at stars. But he showed me more courage in a single moment than I have seen in 3 centuries of war." The chamber fell silent. Every eye was fixed on the Queen. "When my own advisors tried to kill him, he stood in front of their weapons with nothing but his words and his will. He did not fight. He did not flee. He simply refused to let fear win, and in doing so he changed everything." Han stepped forward, her voice rising with conviction. "Today I announce a new chapter in history. We will not merely be allies to humanity. We will be students. We will learn from them. We will open our hearts to the possibility that strength and compassion can exist together. We will build a future based not on conquest but on connection." She raised her hand in a gesture of promise. "This I swear, as Queen of the Empire. Let the galaxy bear witness." The chamber erupted in applause. Human delegates wiped tears from their eyes. Even some of the commanders nodded with approval. It was a moment that historians would study for centuries to come. The moment when two species stopped being enemies and became something more. After the ceremony, representatives from both sides approached with offers of rewards. Earth wanted to give him medals and promotions. They wanted to name him an honorary commander. News networks wanted interviews. Politicians wanted photographs. "Turn them all down." "I appreciate it," he told Commander Grant when she delivered the latest round of offers. "But I don't want to be famous. I just want to do my job." Lisa shook her head in disbelief. "Cole, you saved the peace treaty. You changed galactic history. You could have anything you want." Smiled a small and quiet expression that lit up his ordinary face. "I already have what I want. I want to stand at my post. I want to read my poetry. I want to watch the stars." He hesitated. "And I want to keep talking to her if she'll let me." Lisa studied him for a long moment. Then she laughed, a genuine sound of warmth and wonder. "You really are something else, Cole. All right. You can keep your post, but I'm putting you in for a raise, and that's not negotiable." That night returned to the observation deck. The negotiations were over. The treaty was signed. The diplomats had gone to celebrate. The station was quiet again, empty except for the endless stars. He waited, wondering if she would come. She did. Queen Han appeared at the entrance, dressed not in her royal robes but in the simple gray dress she had worn on their first meeting. Her crown was gone. Without it, she looked younger somehow, more vulnerable. She walked to his side and looked out at the stars. "They wanted to make you an ambassador," she said. "I told them you would refuse." Nodded. "You know me well." "I like to think I do." She turned to face him. Her violet eyes were soft in the starlight. "Cole, the man who stood against an army with nothing but courage and poems." "I was terrified," admitted. "I thought I was going to die." "But you stood anyway. Why?" Thought about the question. He thought about all the nights they had spent together, talking about nothing and everything. He thought about loneliness and connection, and the way she laughed when he said something unexpected. "Because some things are worth dying for," he said finally, "and you were one of them." The Queen reached out and took his hand. Her skin was cool against his, but there was warmth beneath it, hidden and precious. "My advisors think I am foolish," she said. "They say a queen should not care for a human guard. They say it is beneath my station." "And what do you think?" She smiled. It was a small expression, barely visible, but it transformed her entire face. "I think that for 300 years I have done what others expected of me. I have been the queen they wanted me to be, cold, distant, alone." She squeezed his hand gently. "But I do not want to be that queen anymore. I want to be someone who can stand on an observation deck with a shy human and talk about poetry and stars. I want to feel things even if it makes me vulnerable. I want to be alive." Felt tears prick at his eyes. "I'd like that too." They stood together in silence, watching the stars spin slowly past the window. Behind them, the galaxy buzzed with news of the historic treaty. Diplomats celebrated. Politicians gave speeches. Historians began writing the first chapters of a new era. But on the observation deck, none of that mattered. There was only a queen and a guard, holding hands in the darkness, looking at the same stars and dreaming of the same future. In the decades that followed, their story became legend. The shy human who won the heart of an alien queen. The simple guard who changed the fate of two civilizations. Children on Earth and the grew up hearing tales of Cole and Han, the couple who proved that love could bridge any distance. And whenever someone asked how it all started, the answer was always the same. It started with a tired guard who was not afraid to say the stars looked beautiful. It started with a lonely queen who had forgotten how to feel. It started with two people who found each other across the vast emptiness of space and decided that they did not have to be alone. It started, as all great stories do, with a single moment of connection, and it changed everything.